For TrojanInsider.com, I'm Peter Ghersen, as we're here on Tuesday, USC's second practice of the week, joined here by Scott Schrader. And Scott, the whole mantra of the week at practice was higher energy, higher focus, more improvements. Have you seen that in the last couple of days?
Well, yesterday the first thing I noticed is walking to practice. I couldn't see the guys on the field, but I could hear them for the first time. I knew practice was going on without hearing a whistle or a coach yelling here and there. It was much more energetic, and you could, when you walk through the gates, you could see it, and the players were moving faster. It was more efficient practice. I mean, it's not like the practices were terrible before. We didn't know the walkthroughs were lazy or whatever, how they were described by Tyler Vaughns or whoever described it that way. But these two practices this week were definitely more energetic, and it looked like they accomplished what they wanted to this week.
Yeah, I wasn't at practice yesterday, but today I saw that they were handing the ball off a little bit more. Said Ware only got 4 carries last game. Stephen Carr only got 6. I saw him break off a couple nice runs today in practice. JT wasn't exactly as accurate as I've seen him in practice today. It is practice, so we don't want to take too much from that. But that's just kind of some notes we saw.
You missed a lot of practice, though.
I did.
And JT was dropping dimes.
Okay.
During the first half of practice, he connected with Tyler Vaughns, Bayless, I think Devin Williams. So there were like 4 passes that he did connect on for about 40-45 yards, and so I thought he threw the ball well, actually.
Okay.
So I don't think the accuracy was an issue today.
I saw the tail end. Yeah, you were here the whole time. We talked to Porter Gustin. Today was defense day. He's pretty bummed that he's not going to be playing in the first half on Friday night after that targeting penalty. He didn't feel like it was a targeting penalty at all. He had no malicious intent, he said, but he said that the fact that he just popped the helmet off kind of made the final call and made the referees have to call him for the targeting there. So we won't see him, but he said he'd be staying warm in the locker room on Friday in the first half watching film. Clay talked about how he's just trying to really work hard this week himself. He's going to be in his office till midnight every night, watching film till he falls asleep, sleeps in his office, wakes up the next day. So I think there's a little more sense of urgency, and everyone's trying to push forward. I talked to Coach Baxter as well. They said they're going to practice special teams just as much as they have in the past, and that really the coaches just feel like the punters and special teams just had an off day. They feel like there's
been a lot of off days.
Wasn't anything they can do. They said to change anything drastically, but so that might not be the most favorable.
All right, so what they basically have to do is they're trying out a bunch of guys, letting them punt the ball. There's guys kicking it. They're trying a bunch of guys out there, trying to figure out who's doing it best. And that's pretty much the way it has to be. Chase McGrath was one of the guys on special teams that you could count on, and he was consistently making his kicks. So now they're at a point where they're not quite sure what the kicking game is going to be like. The punting game has been consistently bad. So they're going into this game. I'm not quite sure where they are in answering the questions with the special teams, but they have been close to blocking punts. They've been close to blocking kicks. So that part of it has been well. I thought the punt return game, last year it was every week. We were talking about how bad it was.
Yeah.
So that's been relatively good. So there's a lot of things with the special teams that has been good. But this week, I think the topic that is most interesting to me is how many times a game that this Washington State team passes the ball and how quickly the quarterback gets rid of it. And you kind of have an idea about where they stand with the numbers.
Yeah, their new quarterback has thrown 57 attempts the last 2 weeks, and both weeks he's gone over 400 yards. They played Eastern Washington and San Jose State and won both games handily, but they literally ran the ball, I was looking at the stats just before this, 15, 16 times a game and passed the ball 57 times. And he's completing in the 40s out of those pass attempts. So he's completing at a high percentage, throwing for a lot of yards. And Clay Helton said that the offense is almost the same. Yes, they lost Luke Falk to the NFL last year, but Mike Leach has that big playbook that he likes to bring out, and they're going to be passing the ball all over the field. So the Trojans are going to try to get used to that. Luckily, the Trojans' strength, you could say, on offense, even this year they haven't been many strengths. Their pass defenses look a lot better than the run defense, especially in the first couple of games against Stanford and UNLV. And that's, as a whole, I was looking at numbers last year. USC ranked 30th in the nation in pass defense, which is pass yardage per games, which isn't elite, but it's good. In pass rush defense last year, they were close to 100th in the nation. So last year, their pass defense was better. Hopefully this year, it's a little better too. But so far, as we all know.
They really haven't been challenged, though, with the passing game. So we honestly don't know what they're going to look like. They gave up some really talented receivers that they've gone up against.
Yeah, Stanford and Texas.
They've had their production. So you're going to be looking at a team that's going to throw it has thrown it 150 plus times in 3 games, been sacked twice. So they're going to get rid of the ball really, really fast, and it's going to be a challenge to get to them if they even do. So Johnny Nance and I talked after practice today, and they just have to be very, very sound with their assignments against Washington State, and they have to communicate. Which I think the defense overall has not had issues with the communication and missing their assignments like the offensive line has at times.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a challenge, and you just don't know how it's going to turn out. But the defensive backs for USC are the young guys that played well. Elijah has looked good, and the problem is they're down 4 guys they thought they're going to have.
Isaiah Palomalo's now out for the season after shoulder surgery. But Bolden, we don't think is coming back. Achille Ross, I've seen him walking around on campus. I almost want to go up to him and say, hey, you want to come back? But
Jay Godfrey is transferring. So those are 4 really good defensive backs they thought they were going to have, and they don't. So, this may be a week where we see Chase Williams get in and play some free safety. Just not quite sure how this is all going to work out, but USC's one more injury away from being really young. So,
yep, we'll see. We'll see on Friday. Expect a lot of passes from Washington State. Of course, USC threw the ball a ton last week and barely ran it. Hopefully, we'd like to see some more balance in the offense, and then I think just the offensive line has to improve, has to give Daniels more time.
Yeah.
And we have minus 5 yards in the ground. I think the offensive line has something to do with that, and they need to do a better job opening holes for guys like Stephen Carr and guys like Ced Ware, who you said is going to be an NFL running back one day. And
a guy who's going to play on Sundays and who's going to gain a lot of yards in the NFL carried the ball 4 times against Texas.
And got 8 yards.
So I'm thinking that's got to change. I'm thinking Babai is going to have to get more carries. Stephen Carr is talented. He carrying the ball, catching the ball. So, we don't know what the offensive scheme is going to be for this Washington State team, but USC can move the ball on this football team, and it comes down to 2016. This football team started off 1-3. The 4th game, Sam came in and started at quarterback against Utah, and you could see the team was playing much better, and they won every game the rest of the year. So, this team, we don't know where it is, but this team was not that far off from going up 21-10 against Texas in the middle of the second quarter. So you don't know where that would have led. That doesn't explain why the team looked unprepared and they looked out of sync in that second half, but this team may not be as far off from winning a lot of football games as the fans may think. We will find out on Friday night.
That's what we hope. Yeah, big game Friday night, 7:30 at the Coliseum. Scott will be covering a high school game. I'll be there with some other members of the Trojan Insider staff. We'll get a post-game show for you, player interviews, the whole 9 yards. Anything you want to add about recruiting or high school?
Well, we'll be seeing quite a few recruits at modern-day IMG, so we'll look forward to seeing, obviously quarterbacks committed to USC and Bryce Young. Brew McCoy will be playing, and Miles Morale, and Elias Ricks, and there's so many players we don't need to name them all. IMG has a couple of guys that USC may have a chance at for next year, so so it's going to be an interesting Friday on the high school and in the college end.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So for Scott Schrader, Peter Ghersen, TrojanInsider.com, post-practice analysis,